We're here with Abdul, co-president of RPI Esports program. Abdul, thank you so much for your time and adding value to international students.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before we get into the specifics of your program, um, can you tell us a bit about your journey into how you got to be a co-president?
Sure. So I'm a fourth year student here at RPI. I'm studying electrical and computer engineering, and
Mhm.
RPI's eSport program here is entirely student run. So within my first or second year, I was already sort of a member and playing on some of the teams. And by the end of my second year, I applied to run for co-president, and I got the position. And I've been here ever since, helping run the program. And it's been a good journey so far.
And when did the program start?
So the program's been around for several years. I'm not sure when exactly we started, but it's definitely not very new. We've definitely been running games before I've even been here. So I would guess early 2010s is probably when we started off.
Okay. And like schedule wise, like how do you guys because RPA is a big academic school, like requires a lot of time, So
Yeah.
like how do you handle, your job as a co-president with academics, and how do players or coaches and the other positions handle uh this schedule?
Yeah, definitely a lot of time balance between playing and doing your homework. So usually at the beginning of every semester, we try to figure out what each player's schedule is for the team, and then the team can figure out what's the optimal amount of scrim blocks, or when can we play games, when can we practice. And usually, I think the teams run for about 2 hour blocks every week.
Mhm.
Sometimes more, sometimes less, because it depends on what your availability is. So we're very flexible here, and we try to make sure that everyone can balance what they need to balance in order to get everything done.
That's right. And before like this talk, like you mentioned that you guys also travel. Uh, do you guys travel on the weekends, or sometimes if there's a LAN event during the week, you travel? How does it work with the teachers if you have to mix class? How would that work?
Yeah, so traveling isn't something we do a lot, but it happens. I'd say usually maybe one or two teams a semester might go out somewhere, either locally nearby in the big city for a tournament, or somewhere else. So for traveling, we usually have some sort of fund set aside within our budget to help cover for costs of hotels or traveling. And figuring out how you can skip out on classes is also important. So usually we encourage players, if we know an event is coming up, we communicate with your professors and your teachers ahead of time and try to get that work covered out. But again, it's not something that happens commonly, but if we have an opportunity, we definitely try to jump on it.
That's great. So you guys are under student life. Is it something you guys chose to be under, or are you planning on I don't know, being part of athletics or another department, or you're good under student life, and why?
So I think being under student life is fun just because being a student run club, it encourages us to be a little more independent and gives us a little more control over how we want to run the club. And
Mhm.
we do work with RPI in terms of funding and just being like their official esports program. Um, but I think moving forward, we want to stay probably as a student run club because it's working for us so far.
And what will be like your role as a co-president in the club?
So I was a co-president, and I sort of have like two different jobs. So as on the co-president side for the entire club, I help run meetings with our e-board members from the student life and make sure our budget is set up correctly. And then within the club, I'm also sort of in charge of the Overwatch division. So that's the game I run the most, and making sure everyone gets signed up, make sure everyone figures out what their scrim schedule is and when they have to practice and when their games will be. That's sort of the position I take as part of the club.
Okay, and what positions are open or even filled, like non-competitive positions like content creation, graphic designers, social media, or like in production? What are the other positions that you guys have
Yeah,
open?
we definitely have positions for if people want to make content design, we can figure something out for them. And we also look for anyone that might be available to help coach teams or cast our games, because sometimes we do like to stream our games on Twitch or whatever other platform. Um, and then yeah, as a student run club, anyone's always welcome to either run for the co-president position or a representative for one of their games. We also have reps for each of our games to help communicate needs and wants for each team.
Hmm. And in the ESO program, is there any of you that are full time? Would you like to be full time and run the program, or is it something you're using to like build your portfolio to when you graduate from your degree? What is what is the situation?
Yeah, so again, a lot of us are students right now, so I think we're all just focusing on our education, but we're also looking for some sort of fun hobby to do on the side. So picking up esports and playing competitively was a fun idea for most of us. So I think it depends. I know some people that do want to continue on with casting or some sort of role, but also a lot of us are just here as students, looking to do something while in college and then probably moving on afterwards.
Okay, great. And do you guys get to talk to parents when recruiting students, or is the students that they apply and then they can do the tries for your team? Like, how does the recruitment process work?
Yeah, so advertising the club is always something we try to do. Usually at the beginning of the semesters, we'll either hang up posters or go to the activity fair and just sort of show that we exist here as a club at RPI. And then from there, we post our Discord link and people join. And usually through the announcement channels or through the news channels, they'll figure out when tryouts are, or anyone's always there open to answer questions in the chat. And that's sort of how we go about recruiting new people, is we sort of let the people come to us, but we try to put ourselves out there.
Great, nice. And sponsor wise, do you guys actively search for sponsors apart from the university funding, like other outside sponsors, or is something that is not in your radar?
It's a tricky field, looking for sponsors, because since we are a club under the student union, there's some legalities about whether or not we can get
Mm.
sponsors, and that's something that's always in discussion. But as of right now, we are not sponsored by anyone, and I don't think currently we are looking. But that totally depends on the legality of it, like I said. So it's subject to change.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And the skills you learned from your freshman year to now your senior year, like what are the skills like as one of the people that manage the program, like what are the skills you want to like implement on the members of the community so when they graduate they can use them in the workforce? What are those that you're trying to implement in the students?
Yeah, so there's definitely two major skills I think people learn when
Yeah.
they're part of the team. It's if you're on the management side and you have to manage deadlines and get everyone registered for teams, is to do things early and make sure everything's in on time. That's probably the big one, and make sure everyone fills out their sign up forms, whatever they have to do. And then as a player, you definitely have a sense of responsibility where you have to show up to scrim times and communicate with your team if you can make or can't make games. And I think that level of leadership and teamwork definitely plays a part in all roles, even outside of esports. And I think a lot of students do a good job of developing those skills while they're part of the club here.
Okay. And facility wise, do you guys have a facility on campus? Do you practice online in your dorm? How does that work in the
So
program?
currently, right now, and historically, we've been an online in our dorm, but we are currently working with RPI on setting up a facility for us, and that is something that's been going on for 2 or 3 years now, and it'll probably still take a little bit of time. But it is currently in discussion, and hopefully, it's on the right trajectory. I think it'll end up coming to fruit.
And how do you guys make sure that when you graduate, the upcoming juniors, can fill in your position adequately, let's say. So what the objectives you guys are working for, when you graduate, I don't
Yeah,
think you'll have time when you go to the workforce. Like,
right.
how do you make sure they continue. If there's no full time staff, it's more difficult to build like a system, for where you graduate to still work towards that. No?
So usually we try to have some sort of layered um, levels of age within our staff group. So obviously, if everyone's a senior, everyone's a fourth year, and they graduate, then we're sort of starting from scratch. So sort of trying to incorporate people in early on to try to get them to build those skills as they develop from people that have already been doing it for a few years is definitely helpful. So like I mentioned, I started as a second year and now I'm at my fourth year and now we're looking to hopefully recruit younger people again this cycle. I do know a lot of people that have graduated that are still available to answer questions here or there, just give some guidance on how to get things done. So overall, as a band of students, we've gotten it to work and it's working well so far.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great that you can do activations and talk to the alumni, because it makes trust when students are trying to get into a club. So forth.
Yeah.
So that's super valuable.